Hey, welcome to Short Church episode 5, my very first time doing Short Church, so thank you for being on this journey with me, condensing a 25-minute message down into just a few minutes. Here we go. Big breaking news, the Smith family got a puppy. His name is Louie. Judah and I are eating so much humble pie because we said we would never get a dog, but we got him and we love him. So as we're preparing for this puppy, we heard from both the people at the dog store and from the vet. They said, now when you get your puppy, you have to make sure that you leave him alone in his room sometimes, because we are now seeing so many dogs who are experiencing separation anxiety because they have been with their owners 24/7 for the last 14 months, and now that people are getting out of the house, the dogs are freaking out. So if that is happening to dogs, what is happening to me and you as humans who have gone through a universal trauma together? Have you ever wondered over these past 14 months if you or we or our entire society is going to be absolutely traumatized by this global pandemic that we have all been experiencing? Our relationships, our children, our mental health, how are all of these things going to be affected? And furthermore, what does the Bible have to say about it? We're going to look very briefly at 2 stories in the Bible of individuals who went through traumatic experiences, and we are going to see the one thing that they had in common, that even though they went through trauma, they were not traumatized, because that is what I believe for me and for you as followers of Jesus, that we can walk through this trauma but not be traumatized. The first person in the Bible who we're going to look at who experienced trauma is the Apostle Paul. He was this amazing man of God. He spent the latter part of his life in ministry going to different places around the Mediterranean and preaching the gospel. But as he went time after time, so many times in his ministry career, he received beatings. He got stoned one time and left for dead. We can see in Acts chapter 17, every time he would get beat, he would still continue on in his ministry, or he would go back into the city where he had been beaten, say goodbye to the people he loved, and then move on from there. But something significant happened when he was in Philippians. And when he was in Philippians, he went through a beating which had happened to him before. But after Acts chapter 16, when he received this beating, it's like something happened on the inside of him, something triggered, and he was like, no more. Not again. I don't want to go through this experience again. Have you found yourself in this position at all over these last 14 months? Maybe you've been disappointed and you're saying, not again. I don't want to go through that again. Well, that's what happened to Paul, because the next 3 cities he went to, it's like he said, not again. And he snuck out of the cities in the middle of the night or just left the church service so that he wouldn't receive a beating again. But something happened to him in Acts chapter 18. He was in the city of Corinth, and it says that Jesus himself appeared to Paul. And Jesus said, Paul, you don't have to be afraid, for I am with you. And after Paul had that encounter with Jesus, he never left a city for fear of his life. In fact, he started going towards Jerusalem, where he knew he was going to be beaten once again. That is an extreme example of trauma that Paul went through. Paul went through this trauma of being physically beaten, at times to the point of death. And we see that he was scarred by it. But Jesus appeared to him. And when Jesus showed up, it says he decided to stay in Corinth and stay there for a year and a half. What happened in one moment with Jesus? It is as if Jesus met Paul exactly where he was at. When he came and spoke to him, he said these words. He says, do not be afraid, for I am with you. And it is as if those are the exact words that Paul needed to hear to recover from his trauma. Do you know, if you have been going through trauma and you found yourself acting differently, protecting yourself, God can come right now in this moment the same way he came to Paul. He can come to you and heal you. He can speak to you the exact words that you need to hear so that you will not live in a state of trauma. I believe we can live healed. We can be whole because of who Jesus is. The next story, last story we're going to look at, is the story of 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This is a classic Old Testament story. And these men disobeyed the king, and so they were going to be punished. And their punishment was being thrown into a fiery prison. And Daniel chapter 3 tells us that the prison was so hot that it burned the men who were throwing them into this hot furnace. Crazy furnace. Can you imagine? It's so hot. And so it says that King Nebuchadnezzar, who was the evil king who was overseeing this, came and looked at them and he said, "What? We threw 3 men in the fire, but now there's 4 men in the fire." And it says that they were in the fire, unharmed and unbound, and there was a 4th man who was with them. And do you know who that 4th man is? That 4th man was Jesus. And the most incredible thing happened to them because Jesus was in the fire with them. First of all, the only thing that got burned was the captors who were holding them and the ropes that were binding them. The story goes on to tell us that their hair wasn't singed and the smell of smoke wasn't even on them. They walked through fire, and the only thing that was affected were the things that were holding them back, were the things that were holding them captive. Can you believe that for you? I do. I believe that for you and for me, that even though we have been through this fire, even though we have experienced this trauma together as individuals and as a world, that there can be something so significant and supernatural that can happen that our hair isn't going to be singed, we won't even have the smell of smoke on us, and the only thing that will be burned will be the things that are holding us back. Do you believe that for yourself? There's only one way for that to be possible, and that is knowing that Jesus is in the fire with you, that Jesus is going to appear to you. So wherever you're at today, can you just get your faith up there? Maybe see yourself walking through this fire or this trauma and know Jesus is with me and I will not be traumatized. All right, there it is, episode number 5 of Short Church. Thank you for joining us with that. Hey, if you need anything, we are here for you at Church Home, building a community based around Jesus. We love you.